Shack. Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio. You are here with Lavonne. It's August 8th, 2014. We survived another week. Awesome job. I had an awesome week. Literally, it was great. Spectacular. I was a mad woman trying to do 5 million things as usual. And I would like to have succeeded. But that's okay. I'll accept that and just try and do more awesomeness this following week. Anyway, I was thinking a lot about something that I've thought about for a long time, probably since my adolescence and my personal experience and encounters with becoming a sexual creature. So I figured it's about time that I at least unleash the beast within and share with you some ideals about sex. I wrote an article that contributed to my madness over this past week. I've been trying to write more, which is awesome because I love it. But because most people don't have this long attention span, I'm trying to condense all of my ideas into this, like, synopsis, right? Like, every sentence has to be the most perfect words to state what you want to state in the best, most rational fashion, but the quickest fashion. And that aspect of writing, maybe I just created that within my mind, but I wanna appeal to people, has made me a mad woman. But regardless, I'll share with you my ideas of madness. I titled this, "The Key to Your Happiness May Be in Your Very Lap," because I think it really is. So, masturbation. You know, that thing that most people choose to never talk about? Why in our society is this considered a stigma? I often ponder why love in general has made people phobic. John Lennon's words echo within my subconscious mind. He said, "We live in a world where we have to hide to make love, while violence is practiced in broad daylight. Seems to be the consensus." Whoa, hello, wrong, hold on. Seems the consensus is the same. We have become uncomfortable or hyper-emotional when complimented. We are not used to sharing love in an open source fashion. If kind vocalizations of appreciation unravel the comforts of others, imagine what the idea of becoming a powerfully fierce, openly sexual creature produces when processed mentally. Do you agree? People aren't out there like riding the bus together or standing in line at the grocery store like, hey dude, how did you get it in last night? Or, hey lady, did you get any last night? You know, it's just not, unless you're like a close friend of someone, and this is something that you guys are comfortable speaking on, you don't really just go out there and just openly talk about sex. I mean, I tend to, but my friends know that. That's part of hanging out with me. That is an aspect of my psyche. Like, I explore that. I like bringing attention to it in the least creepy way possible, of course, to others so that they realize, like, whoa, maybe that's not such a bad thing. Just depending on the way it exists within your life. And we'll get to that. So most of our lives, we're searching for something, right? And I wonder, what if that thing is literally in our lap via actual practice of self-love? So I believe that the many conflicts that others face within the failures of their individual relationships arise from the lack of encouragement while growing to masturbate. We can all agree that the body is controlled by the brain, but we disagree about how emotions play a role in our sexuality and life experience in general. As a species, we tend to ignore that which we do not understand, and sometimes it's easier to operate in said state. It is common in our conventional society not to openly discuss the importance of masturbation or the benefits. Women and men experience sexual pleasures in similar but very different manners, especially in regards to emotions. And I think that's important. I want to talk a little bit more about how our brain plays a part in the sexual experience. Let's see here. This article comes from Dr. Mercola. He is a nutritionist. He is kind of a well of knowledge. I encourage you to check him out. He's got a lot of ideals and theories about our existence, and he's got some interesting stuff. You don't have to believe everything he says, but it's interesting to observe another person's perspective. So he says that sexual desire as well as orgasm are controlled by various influences in the brain and nervous system. Researchers have revealed many similarities between men and women, contrary to popular belief. For example, visual stimuli spur sexual stirrings in both. So not only men aren't the only ones that like to have visual pleasure, or they don't receive pleasure. They do receive pleasure via visual observation, but so do women. Apparently that was a misconception. Brain imaging studies show that achieving orgasm involves far more than merely heightened arousal. It requires a release of inhibitions. So that's very important. I want you to remember that. Culminating in a shutdown of the brain's center of vigilance in both sexes, and widespread neutral power failure in women. So the body just stops. A fascinating Scientific American article linked below explores the body of research in this compelling and universal subject. I encourage you to check it out. It's kind of vast. Sexual desire and orgasm are far from simple issues that can be resolved by taking hormones or popping a pill that will turn your world into varying shades of blue. There are a host of influences on your brain and nervous system that control your sex glands and genitals, and some of those influences are your very thoughts themselves. This is important. Anxiety, defensiveness, fear, and failure of communication are destructive physiological forces that can take a heavy toll on your libido, whether you're a man or a woman, by acting as roadblocks to desire. According to Professor Gert Holstege with the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, fear and anxiety need to be avoided at all costs if a woman wishes to have an orgasm. I agree. And so many ladies know this because they have this lady body. It's our enjoyment of sexual pleasure is completely tied to our emotions. And I don't care what kind of lady ninja you think you are, it is super hard to turn that shit off. And you know it. You gotta be a super advanced ninja to do so. I haven't figured that out yet, but we'll get to that. And Dr. Mercola agrees with me. He says, it all starts in your brain, and your body only does what your brain tells it to. Every erection begins in your brain. Your brainstem emits nerve impulses that control erectile function. These nerve impulses navigate through the erection center of your spinal column to the erectile tissue of your penis. Whether they trigger a chain reaction in the membranes of your vascular muscle cells, this sophisticated chain reaction is dependent on a messenger molecule called silicguanosine monophosphate, or cGMP. However, this works in reverse as well. An erection softens as soon as another enzyme called, oh my goodness, phosphodiesterase, ooh, that was a hard one, starts to degrade the cGMP molecules. Forgive me. Drugs like Viagra, Levotra, and Cialis work by inhibiting, there it is again. Okay, I'm going to tackle this thing. Phosphodiesterase. Okay. Which may help maintain your erection. That word. But these pills will not create an erection and end of themselves. Your initial erection still has to be triggered psychologically. Without that initial impetus, potency pills will have no effect whatsoever. This is also why these pills are ineffective for many men who take them with hoping for a magic jack-in-the-box effect. And we'll get to other natural ways later. If this is a problem for you, I have a potential solution. I mentioned earlier that sexual pleasure, according to science, suggests that our emotions play a big role in how we experience it. Isn't that weird? Anyways, he says that the pressure of performance and potency itself is a large contributor to impotence, and this theme is pushed continually in advertising, whether related to sexual potency drugs or the latest razor. Studies by sexual psychologist and popular author Bernie Zilbergeld, oh my gosh, I'm destroying names tonight, I'm so sorry. Zilbergeld have shown that most men with potency problems believe in these advertised myths, so they're setting themselves up for success. Zilberg also pointed out that many of these men engage in what's called the spectating, in which the man gets stuck in observing and assessing the sexual situation as if he's an outsider, so he has a different perspective, rating the woman's expectations on what he can deliver. And then there's stress, but it's not necessarily the type of stress typically portrayed by the media. Turns out the problem is rarely the work stress itself, but rather a transference of work performance standards to your sex life. Approaching your sex life with the same attitude, feeling pressure to perform to a certain standard of love into another grueling task that must be completed and completed well. So you want to have a realistic perspective of your sex. We'll get to more of that later as well. and you don't want to project the pressures of your job and status in the community or whatever it is you do as a functional consumer, producer. You want to leave all of that be when you become this sexual creature. You don't want to project that on that aspect of your life. Do you do that? I don't think I do that, but I don't know. I guess I'd have to think about it more. So, let's see. So Dr. Mercola makes an interesting point. He says that the research into the mechanics of your love life is not done for a beneficial purpose to you. Scientists don't necessarily care about figuring out what causes dysfunction to help you understand yourself better, he says, but to create a drug that will act on your nervous system to stimulate desire, which he believes, and I agree, is a travesty to love itself. Instead of dealing with your emotional and psychological issues that are blocking you from connecting with and feeling the desire for your partner, you may soon be able to take a pill that removes the very act of needing to feel anything. I think that's horrible. One such experimental compound already under development is a peptide called bremelanotide. It works by blocking receptors in your brain that are involved in regulating basic drives such as eating and sex. In human studies, bremelanotide has triggered spontaneous erections in men and boosted sexual arousal and desire in women. Side effects. Here we go. Rising blood pressure. As convenient as these drugs may appear, impotence drugs contribute to infertility, heart problems, and can even blind you. And take synthetic hormones in hopes of putting the spring back in your step causes all sorts of terrible health problems. So he's just a few natural things that, one being that you could cut out sugar, and he wrote an article called Boosting Your Sex Drive May Be as Easy as Cutting Out Sugar, so if you want to check that out. Says that he referenced a study that was published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation saying that the high levels of sugar in your brain can turn off the gene that controls your sex hormones. And simple sugars are metabolized in your liver with the excess stored as fats and lipids. Excessive fat synthesis is turned in her and deactivates your sex hormone, which causes your levels of the sex hormone to drop dramatically, and it is this protein that is your testosterone and estrogen levels. That's interesting. So we all know that sugar is most GMO. It's mostly corn syrup. So you don't want to eat a whole lot of processed stuff with those types of sweeteners anyway. We don't want to support GMOs. Anyway, let's see. He suggests that starting a regular exercise program can help to speed up your. Where's he going with this? He says that studies have shown active men who engage in regular physical activity lower the risk of experiencing sexual dysfunction. Okay, so if you maintain and participate in a regular exercise program, that you can prevent sexual dysfunction. Your body as it's intended. And he suggests that you eat right for nutritional type, and you can learn more about that on his website as well. And something I'm going to talk about later is the emotional freedom techniques. But now I want to get back to the main article here. Something interesting I learned within my research is that a lady, when reaching climax, has a chemical reaction within her mind that is similar to the fight or flight response. In order to fully experience her orgasm, she has to completely and literally let down her inborn guard. Doing so is a complex happening And you have to be emotionally trusting in your partner and be open to being vulnerable and to be able to have a full sexual cycle. And I didn't know that there were cycles of sex. In my research, I realized that people have classified the way that sex progresses. Okay, so I found this on the WebMD. Anyways, let's see what they say. So, they say there are 4 phases, except the timing is different. Men typically reach orgasm first during intercourse, while women may take up to 15 minutes to get to the same place. This makes the likelihood of simultaneous orgasm during intercourse a rare event. I don't know about that. And the 4 phases are excitement, plateau, orgasm, and resolution. And there is no distinct beginning or ending to each phase. They're actually all part of a continuous process. Keep in mind, this article states, this is a very general outline of what happens to each of us as we become sexually aroused, and that there is much variation among individuals as well as between different sexual events. So phase 1, excitement. This phase usually begins within 10 to 30 seconds after erotic stimulation and can last anywhere from a few minutes to many hours. Men, the penis becomes slightly erect. A man's nipples may also become erect. In women, their vaginal lubrication begins, and the vagina expands and lengthens. In the outer lips, the inner lips, the clitoris, and sometimes the breasts begin to swell. Both have an increase in heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing is accelerated. Phase 2, so exciting, is the plateau. The men, did you know this? If you're a man, you did. That your testicles are drawn up into your scrotum. They go, they like get up there, and the penis goes boing. It's fully erect. In women, did you know? This is interesting. I knew this because I have one. The vagina lips become puffier, and the tissues of the walls of the outer third of the vagina swells with blood, and the opening to the vagina narrows. The clitoris disappears, oh no, into its hood, and the inner labia, which are the lips, change color. And they say it's hard to notice, but this is super interesting. For women who have never had children, the lips turn from pink to bright red, and in women who have had children, the color turns from bright red to deep purple. Next time that I'm all excited, I'm going to look in the mirror, and I'm going to check that out. Get back to you on that one. According to this, both people, men and women, all of them, experience rapid breathing and pulse rates, and a sexy flush may appear on the stomach, chest, shoulders, neck, or face. Muscles tense in the thighs, hips, hands, and buttocks, and spasms begin. Ugh. Next. So exciting. Phase 3. This is the climax of the cycle. It is also the shortest of the 4 phases, usually only lasting a few seconds. First, seminal fluid collects in the urethral bulb. This is when a man may have the sensation that orgasm is certain, or ejaculatory inevitability. That's fun to say. Ejaculatory inevitability. Next, semen is ejaculated from the penis. Contractions occur in the penis during the orgasmic phase. And for women, the first third of the vaginal walls contract rhythmically every 0.8 of a second. And the number of and intensity of the contractions vary depending on the individual orgasm. And the muscles of the uterus also contract, but fairly noticeable fashion. And both men and women are breathing intensely. Their pulse rate and blood pressure continue to rise, and their muscles are tense. Phase 4. This is called a resolution, according to this. This phase is a return to the normal resting state. It can last from a few minutes to a half hour or longer. This stage is generally longer for women than men. The penis returns to its normal flaccid state. There is usually a refractory period where it's impossible to orgasm again until a certain amount of time has passed. The amount of time varies among age, fitness, and other factors. The uterus and clitoris return to their normal positions within women, and some women may be able to respond to additional stimulation and with additional orgasms. I guess it depends on how open they are. We'll get to that. Both sexes experience swelling that recedes, the sexiness flush disappears, and there is a general relaxation of muscle tension. So that was a really in-depth article by WebMD. Thank you so much for your knowledge. Seems really broad and general and boring. I don't like to think of sex as that. First of all, I guess there's a general incline and decline. Cool, I get that. But they don't have to make it sound so boring. I think it can be a psychedelic experience. It can be an out-of-body experience. It can be a mind-blowing, world-altering, life-changing experience. And we'll get into that. But I'm suggesting that those things are only achieved when you understand what's occurring within you. So I have a hypothesis. Let me finish this thought first. Let me make you just wait for that. So we talked about the cycle. And I suggest that a stronger, more functional, and open relationship will emerge from those who have this comfort, an idea of realistic functions of their particular body. So everybody's body is different, right? And I'm not saying that you're doing it wrong if you don't touch yourself. I'm just encouraging you to be open to receiving pleasure from yourself so that you better understand how you will merge with another person. That's really important. Like, I'm not going to say that I've had a lot of partners, but I've had enough partners to understand that each of us are like puzzles, and we don't fit the same way with others. You fit differently depending on their curves and the way they move and their flexibility and their comfort level. All of those things play a role. And I think you would have a greater chance or higher success rate of finding someone that you're in sync with, and that you share this connection, this out-of-body experience that is possible. I think it's more likely that could occur if you spend this time getting to understand what it is that you like and you need and you want, and you feel comfortable in saying, hey, do this, or hey, don't do that. Sex is a very sensitive thing. It's super intimate, right? We call it intimacy for a reason. You're vulnerable and you want to be received in a well fashion. So it's easy to become offended when people critique you. But if you're comfortable and confident in your desires, and I think that you could perhaps say those things in a way that wouldn't cause those types of feelings. So my hypothesis that I mentioned earlier is as to why we are unsuccessful as a whole unit in finding this ideal partner. And I say that because the divorce rates in the United States clearly show that maintaining a connection and long-lasting relationship is complex. But why is it a common occurrence within our lives to so easily break an unbreakable vow with no regard for what it's supposed to symbolize, regardless of your religion? I say it's a union of two, not a union of halves. We have become hypocrites not because we get divorced, but because we have allowed others to direct the manner in which we operate as a creature. We have lost the innate connections that we are intended. We bundle our desires with this unrealistic notion about what is supposed to be within our minds, obliviously seeking that which is essentially unknown because you have not tried, while deciphering that which is required with another. So, in those complicated words that I created there, I'm trying to say that you're imagining this image of what sex is within your mind, and then you have sex, and it's not what you imagined, and you're not able to enjoy it the way that you would hope because you have this ideal, and you're looking for that, this ideal, but it hasn't happened, right? And you're trying to figure out what it is you want, but you don't know because you haven't tried. How does that work? I want to remind you that you're born a whole person. You are complete. And all other people should be decorations in your existence. Not giving or taking anything, but influencing the essential you. The real you that is to be its best and shine intensely. You want to spend time with people who bring out the best in you. And, like I said, don't give or take anything, but enhance. You want the most lovely qualities of yourself to be prominent. And you want to be remembered for the things that you're passionate about and things that you love. And we're really affected by the things that are around us. A notable observation that supports this is the manner in which frequencies or sound prove to be a powerful method of manipulation of experience. Dr. Masaru Emoto, whose work I reference often because it is amazing, pretty much solidifies the ideal in my mind that everything is vibrational. And this is tangible. I can see it. So Masaru Emoto, in 1994, had the idea to freeze water and observe it with a microscope, and he was able to see snow-like crystals. And he started to realize that the shapes would change depending on location and also intention that was spoken to or given towards the water. My purpose in sharing this with you is that I want you to make a connection between the observational effects of intention and love towards molecules and the result. They change structurally to be more unified, and they seem happier, and they seem content, and they seem lovely. And I want to remind you that you too are composed mostly of the same substance. So what does your environment do to you? How does it mold you? How do things you hear shape your consciousness or reality? This is important stuff that we just don't know, we don't think about. So his work is researching the drastic and observable effects of sound and intentions on water molecules when viewed via microscope perspective, and they offer insight to the unseen, the things words do not explain, which are measures of the heart and objectives displayed. So, what were your implied beliefs about your sexuality when you were growing up? What were you told to believe about your sexual desires, your expression, and your exploration? I want you to be aware of what you are creating within yourself. Do you have stagnancy in your life force that may be interrupting your ability to enjoy pleasure? So I mentioned earlier the emotional freedom technique. I want to talk a little bit about that. It's used to help remove personal blocks of any kind. And I'd like you to try, if you identify with the scenario I described, perhaps it could help you identify what lies deep within your subconscious and maybe you could release those things or even begin to understand them. So let's check that out. And there's a video if you go to eft.mercola.com. It's like 11 and a half minutes, and this lady will give you a demonstration. But I'm just going to read over a little bit of the things that he mentions to give you an overview, just in case you don't make it there. The Emotional Freedom Technique, or EFT, is a psychological acupressure technique that Dr. Mercola uses in his practice and most highly recommends to optimize your emotional health. Although it is still often overlooked, emotional health is absolutely essential to your physical health and healing. I agree, 1,000,000%. No matter how devoted you are to the proper diet and lifestyle, you will not achieve your body's ideal healing and preventative powers if emotional barriers stand in your way. I see this every day in the practice where I work. I work in a healing center. It's holistic medicine. And so often people inhibit themselves from being well because they believe they don't deserve it. But I won't get too much into that. I will share with you that I've seen a lot of my patients utilize this technique to remove blocks so that they can proceed on their path to wellness. So it is effective from what I've seen. And it's very easy to learn, and it will help you to remove negative emotions, reduce weird food cravings, reduce or eliminate pain, he says, or implement positive goals. So it's a form of acupressure based on the same energy meridians used in traditional acupuncture to treat physical and emotional ailments for over 5,000 years, but without the invasiveness of needles. Instead, simple tapping with the fingertips is used to input kinetic energy into specific meridians on the head and chest while you think about your specific problem, whether it's a traumatic event, an addiction, or a pain, and voice positive affirmations. A combination of tapping the energy meridians and voicing positive affirmation works to clear the short circuit, the emotional block, from your body's bioenergy system, thus restoring your mind and body's balance, which is essential for optimal health, I love that word, and in the healing of physical disease. Some people are initially wary of these principles that EFT is based on. The electromagnetic energy that flows through the body and regulates our health is one only recently becoming recognized in the West. Others are initially taken aback by and sometimes amused by the EFT tapping and affirmation mythology, whose basics you will learn here. But keep in mind that more than any traditional alternative method that I've used or researched, EFT works. I have witnessed the results of my patients since deciding to use EFT exclusively since 2001. Indeed, because of its very high success rate, the use of EFT has spread rapidly, and medical practitioners employing EFT can now be found in every corner of the country and world. So I'll give you guys little basics. Let's see. He says that it's important to tap the right areas, that you want to properly use your fingertips, you want to tap solidly but don't hurt yourself, you want to take off any metal or watches or jewelry, and then he goes into particular points that you can find again at eft.mercola.com. But it's really helpful. And there's a manual on here you guys can check out. But like I said, I have seen the benefits. And there's plenty of information here that you guys can check out if you're interested. So perhaps you are suffering from an emotional block, and we talked about the emotional freedom technique and how that may assist you in removing said blocks. I keep saying that we are born with an innate curiosity and inclination to explore the most primal and sacred aspect of ourselves. Babies in utero are often seen gripping for dear life this pleasure center at the core of their being. And the desire for pleasure continues after arriving into this sphere. And I say, is that not the sole purpose of our existence? To determine what we enjoy and to explore it to its fullest? Right? Is that not what we're doing as a person? We are trying to figure out the things we enjoy, and then we want to figure out how we can do them. There seems to be a lot of confusion in general about this necessary function of our bodies. The extent of how sexual pleasure is experienced and felt, and even more curiously controlled via intention. So there's a lot we don't understand, not only about our bodies, but over sex. We don't understand where emotions are created within our bodies. We can see what parts of the brain are activated, but we don't know where they come from. So this article was published by thewholescience.net, and it's titled Mind Over Body, Are Orgasms All in the Mind? Interesting. Orgasms through mental imagery alone, are they possible? Research into the science of the orgasm has uncovered that it is possible to have an orgasm without physical touch. Indeed, they have even found that it is possible to orgasm through non-erogenous parts of the body, including the knee and the nose. It is a common experience to have an orgasm through dreams, hinting at the possibility that our minds may be the vehicle for orgasms, not the body. What a weird concept, considering that the body only does what the mind tells it. Furthermore, researchers have discovered that it is possible for paralyzed people to have orgasms. But how? Are orgasms all in the mind? This formerly taboo subject in science was explored by Rutgers University when Rutgers University Commissaire and retired Professor Beverly Whipple decided to test out his theory. Carrying out studies of spinal cord injured women, they found evidence of what they believed to be a new orgasmic pathway, one that bypasses the spine completely. They found that the same brain areas were activated during orgasm that was when experienced by imaginary alone. There's no difference between those and actual genital orgasms. Known completely as the extragenital orgasms, their studies found that pleasure can be obtained through any part of the body or from no physical contact at all. They state that although it sounds strange, the reports are believable. Now people can show our book to someone who doubts it, which is called The Science of Orgasm, and it can serve as validation. Time will tell how prevalent non-genital orgasms are. From their investigation into paralyzed women's orgasms, it is showing that perhaps what we have thought was the cause of orgasms, which is physical stimulation, may not be the cause at all. Indeed, it could be that harnessing the power of our minds through mental imagery alone may be enough to produce full physical orgasms in both men and women. They include the increase in the self-induced imaginary orgasm condition were comparable to the magnitude to those in the genital self-stimulation produced orgasm condition. On this basis, we state that the physical genital stimulation is evidently not necessary to produce a state that is reported to be an orgasm, and that a reassessment of the nature of orgasm is warranted. So, we know that we have orgasms. We think that they come from physical stimulation and that we go through all these different phases of sex. But when I read those opinions and those words that describe it, I don't identify with it that way. That's not what it's like in my perspective. For me, it's like a dance. You know, it's it's a game where we're passing back this ball of energy. And you can feel it moving between the two of you. And it gets stronger and more powerful and quicker and more intense as you play, And that's to me what it feels like if you were literally tossing around this deliciously awesome supernova. You're moving it between the two of you, however you desire. That's what it's like. And it's interesting to read the perspective about creating it within the mind. And my whole point of this article was to share that I think that our inability to be open with exploring this part of ourselves has resulted in the disconnection we feel with partners when we are unsuccessful in sharing this type of sexual experience that is open and free and uninhibited. I have so many people within my life sphere that struggle within this area of their lives, and it is horrible for them because this is a very intimate time, or could be an intimate time, to share sacred space with someone they care about, but it's not able to happen for whatever reason. And most of us desire to share our lives with a companion of sorts. Usually, the required hormones start provoking the idea somewhere near a transition between adolescence and teenage years. This sounds familiar, I'm sure. But what if at this moment in your life, this crucial time of change and intense unknown desires, you knew that you could look inside you for the pleasure you are seeking? You are comfortable with the idea of exploring your body and figuring out what it enjoys, and you are seeking to understand your preferred sexual stimuli. How do you know what you expect from a future lover if you have no intended desires? I have a lot of people question my opinion in regards to sex. People feel open about the subject with me. More alarming is that the overwhelming shame that I find in the others, that they uncomfortably carry it around. Sometimes within their developing character, someone imposed their beliefs, their discomfort about sex upon them. That's not fair. That's an individual, subjective type of thing. Everybody experiences their reality in a different way. Everybody's got a different comfort level. And sex is going to be a very individualized thing. Which is why I'm encouraging to explore this aspect of you in a fashion that is relaxed, that has no expectations or no barriers. Within you there is a governing life force that is incredible, and it's connected to everything. I like to think of everybody as a different version of me. And if you live that way, you'll find that the people who irritate you aren't so bad, and the people you love, you appreciate them more because they are essentially you. And the people that you don't love, you appreciate them more because they're the parts of you that could be better. So you're encouraged to help everyone because essentially you're helping you. And that's why I share these ideas is I'm comfortable in this body. I'm comfortable knowing that this is just where I hang out. This isn't me. And I'm comfortable experiencing pleasure through this body in an open fashion. And I let things move through me and not happen to me. And that's hard. It's so hard to be in that mindset, and it's a constant observation of that, because the mind wanders and the body desires things that are outside of normal parameters. I'm sure that you guys, like me, have a hard time going, whoa, that's not acceptable. Sometimes you just want to be impulsive, and you feel like this creature and you're trying to adhere to what you think is right or wrong, when you shouldn't try to do any of those things. You should just be. And that's the hardest thing. One should seek to share the notion of acceptance of pleasure that is operated alone. And one should perpetuate the concept that sexual pleasure is not a sin, but a gift of exploration in personal gratitude and love. Imagine if, in a non-awkward fashion, someone you respected, like, say your grandpa, your grandma, your teacher, your neighbor, your cousin, whatever, they were like, hey, you know, you have this part of you that causes a great deal of pleasure, and you should spend some time, like, trying to figure out what it is that you like, so that in the future, you know what to expect from somebody who you would hope to share that experience with you. And we should be able to do this in a non-creeper fashion, or we should not condone others for being openly sexual or desiring sex, because it's kind of important. So many studies show that there's a link to heart conditions with having sex. People are healthier when they're having sex. Their attitudes are better when they're having sex. Their stamina, their mental clarity, just the list is super long. It's a good thing. It's not only for procreation. We don't only do it to spread our seed, but to have pleasure. And like everything in life, you should be modest, especially when being modest. But seek to have a full, objective experience within its realm. Being open to the idea of receiving pleasure has become an uncommon trait within our society. This is a saddening truth that I hope to see change. We should embrace the divine sexual beast that is willing and waiting to emerge. It's there in all of us. I encourage you to check out the work of Dr. Ronnie Adele. He wrote a really interesting book that I didn't get to mention this evening. I want to get the exact title for you. Give me 1 second here. His name is Edell, and it's called The Sexually Satisfied Woman. He has devised a plan over the years as a psychiatrist to getting everything you want from your woman in bed by helping her to release this inner sexual creature. So there's a tip. There's also this really cool video that I like on YouTube called Orgasmic Meditation. And I'm going to get more into this on my next spicy article where we talk about Kundalini activation, which is, I mentioned earlier, the life force within all of us. And Kundalini is just another word to call it, what to call it. But it's a way to have this experience that I spoke of, this out-of-body, psychedelic, mind-altering, life-shifting sexual encounter, solo or with company, that just blows your mind. And you can literally feel every vibration that has ever been created within the universe. And I think that's a possibility for everyone when you open yourself to that type of experience, especially alone. It's awesome. So next week I want to talk more about sacred sex, or things like the video I mentioned, the orgasmic meditation. It's a way for couples to connect and explore the body of the woman and get her to this state of relaxation where she's able to become this beast and she's able to let down her guard. And it instructs men, like the top left quadrant of the clitoris, for example, is the most sensitive, and it walks you through this whole kind of bonding process that could help a woman achieve the orgasm she's seeking. So many of my girlfriends are like, I can't have an orgasm. I really, really want them to have one. So I encourage you to touch your lady's clitoris in the upper left-hand quadrant, like for at least 15 minutes. Magic. Also, men, you have, and ladies, the penis has this little area called the frenulum. It is located under the head of the penis, right where the sides of it kind of merge into that little pointy thing, and it kind of looks like that the little thing underneath your top lip that connects like your lip to your teeth. Right there in your gum line, it's like that same little thing. In the intersection of all the points, that's the frenulum. That underneath right there is like your man's clit. You want to just go to town on that thing. Drive him wild. Also, a good tip that I learned from somebody I admire. This is a funny thing to learn from somebody you admire. But the scrotum of a man is highly likely to respond to slight tug. I know it sounds weird, but you want to, like, as you're stimulating, you want to give it a little pull, but nicely. Don't, like, rip those things off. He will probably, like, hit you or something out of reflex. Just want to give him a little pull, and he'll be going wild, and he will not understand what it is that you were doing. Just a tiny little pull. Also, something very interesting they learned in men and sexuality class. When a man ejaculates, the sperm switches sides. So say you're holding on to scrotum during the time, and it's the left guy's turn. And they literally do a little turn. Like, you can feel the ball move. And then the next time that the man has an ejaculation, you can feel the opposite one do the same thing. It goes like, ah! It has like a little ceremony dance. It's funny. And that's all I got this evening about random facts on sex. I hope to see you guys back next week when we talk about how to activate the Kundalini or the life force within. We talked about the importance of self-love this evening and how you should not have unrealistic expectations because it might just ruin a beautiful opportunity. You should be open to receiving love, and figuring out how to be open to receiving love can most likely arise from spending that necessary time alone. And I encourage you to have that. We talked about where sexual desire comes from. It's created within the mind. There are different manners in which we have sexual experience. Men and women both have similar yet different experiences. Women seem to be more emotionally inclined to inhibit their sexual pleasure based on their ability to relax and let go of their inhibitions. We talked about Masaru Emoto in his work on studying the effects of intention within water molecules and how that relates to us with our implied beliefs from society within us that affect our ability to be sexual creatures and enjoy sex. Not only the religious persecution, but the societal that arises from being insecure. And then we talked about how to release insecurities via the emotional freedom technique. Dr. Mercola is an awesome guy. I encourage you to check him out. He's got articles about everything and everything. The emotional freedom technique, you can find out more information on eft.mercola.com. There's a video which tells you how to be awesome in it. There's a ridiculous amount of verbiage underneath the video that I tried to get through. Anyways, guys, have a beautiful week. Enjoy the new moon tomorrow. Be sexy, and I'll see you next week. Good night.
I'ma let 'em know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.